Ever since I did my first film, I think that I really want to get into this business and learn the craft of acting and really try to figure out what it is all about and how you can get good at it. So I think it was that first film that really inspired me.
Over 30 years later, and people are still talking about it, still watching, still arguing over whether it actually beats the original. They are not wrong to argue Terminator 2. Judgment Day is not just a great sequel. It is a movie that should not exist at all. Trapped in legal quicksand for years, written in 7 weeks flat, and shot on a ticking clock. Somehow, it became the highest grossing film of 1991. You know what happens on screen. You probably do not know what was happening behind it. We are going 21 facts deep on one of the greatest action films ever made. Not just trivia, this is the stuff that changes how you see every single scene. The accidents that became iconic, the decisions that nearly killed the entire production. The actor who forgot his alarm and almost erased one of the most memorable deleted scenes in Hollywood history. Stick around for fact number 1. What happened to this film decades later is something nobody in that steel mill finale could have predicted. Hit like drop your favorite Terminator 2 moment in the comments and let us get into it. Fact 21. Arnold was paid $21,000 per word. Let us start with the math, because the numbers are insane. Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid roughly $15 million to appear in Terminator 2, staggering for 1991. But here is what makes it legendary. The T-800 speaks about 700 words in the whole film. Do the math. That is about $21,000 per word. I will be back. A line he already delivered for free in the first movie, suddenly worth a small fortune. Hasta la vista, baby. Practically a mortgage payment, no problemo. That one probably covered someone's car insurance included. Chill out, dickwad. That is great. See, you're getting it. No problemos. Schwarzenegger's value was never really in the dialogue. It was in the posture. The walk. The way the man could make a pair of tinted sunglasses feel genuinely threatening. The most expensive element in a $102 million blockbuster was not the liquid metal villain, the helicopter stunts, or the groundbreaking CGI. It was a guy in a leather jacket whose primary communication style was silence. Arnold Schwarzenegger alone was roughly 15% of the total budget before he even said a word on set. The most expensive, strong silent type in Hollywood history. Worth every penny. Fact 20, the film almost never happened because of a $1 divorce settlement. Terminator 2 existing is a miracle, and it nearly failed because of one of the strangest financial deals in Hollywood history. After the original Terminator became a hit, the rights were split 3 ways. Hemdale Film Corporation held 50%. James Cameron held a portion. Cameron had sold his share to producer Gail Ann Hurd during their 1989 divorce for exactly $1. That is the transaction that nearly killed one of the most lucrative sequels in cinema history. Cameron already had a difficult history with Hemdale's John Daly, who tried to interfere with the ending of the original film. Going back to work under that arrangement, Cameron's position was simple: absolutely not. For years, the rights just sat there tangled in old grudges and bad blood. What finally broke the deadlock was Arnold being Arnold. Schwarzenegger knew Hemdale was in financial trouble, went straight to Carolco Pictures, and told them to go buy those rights. Carolco obliged. $10 million to Hemdale, $5 million to Hurd, 17 total before a single frame was shot. The reason Terminator 2 exists is not fate, not Skynet, but contract law, old grudges, and a well-timed phone call. Fact 19, the script was written in 7 weeks. Here is a detail that should terrify every writer who has ever complained about a deadline. With the rights secured and Carolco committed, James Cameron and co-writer William Wisher had about 7 weeks to write the entire script. 7 weeks for a film that would run nearly 2.5 hours, feature massive set pieces, and introduce a groundbreaking villain. It had to flesh out an emotional arc between 3 main characters and handle time travel logic without collapsing. 7 weeks. Cameron has said they were working around the clock. The finished script covered everything. Nightmare sequences, the liquid metal, T-1000, the father figure, dynamic, the logic of Skynet. All assembled under a deadline, Most studios would not even give a romantic comedy.
That impossible schedule rolled directly into production without any breathing room.
A locked release date was already in place. The train was moving. Everybody jumped on. Here's what that means for the rest of this list. Virtually everything you are about to hear happened in a pressure cooker, under maximum pressure, extreme speed, and barely any room for error. The miracle isn't just that the film was good. The miracle is that it was finished. Some theaters received their reels at the last possible moment. The sprint did not stop at the final cut. It went all the way to opening night. Editors Conrad Buff, Mark Goldblatt, and Richard A. Harris were trimming the film right against the clock. Labs were simultaneously cranking out prints as fast as humanly possible. This was 1991. Physical reels, physical distribution, no digital uploads anywhere. You could not just push a button and send a file. Someone had to physically drive those heavy reels to the theaters. And the T-1000 is back, shooting cycling clubbing and creating chaos whenever things do not go his way. Some cinemas reportedly received their prints just hours before the doors opened. Think about that for a second. The highest-grossing film of 1991, the movie that changed action cinema forever, and some projectionists were threading reels barely in time for the lights to dim. It was the cinematic equivalent of sliding your homework under the door as the bell is already ringing. Except the homework cost $102 million and had to open in thousands of theaters at the exact same time. From the outside, a perfectly engineered mega hit. From the inside, an overcaffeinated, sleep-deprived race to the finish that somehow crossed the line right on time. James Cameron wanted a liquid metal villain for the first movie. Read that sentence again. He did not come up with the T-1000 for the sequel. He wanted it from the start. The technology simply did not exist yet.
Mid-80s, visual effects teams told him it was a lovely idea, but absolutely impossible.
So, Cameron shelved the concept and went with the practical genius of the original, a metal endoskeleton beneath human flesh, courtesy of Stan Winston's workshop.
By the second film, everything had changed. Cameron had already explored digital morphing in the abyss.
He went to Dennis Muren at Industrial Light and Magic and asked if that concept could be made metallic, reflective, and capable of morphing in real time. Muren said yes. Associate VFX supervisor Mark Dippe developed new scanning techniques to capture Robert Patrick's movements, forming the digital foundation for the CGI. We got Robert, and he was up there, and we painted a grid on him and shot a lot of footage of him. The result required about 52 computer-generated shots stitched with Stan Winston's practical prosthetics for bullet damage and blade transformations. Industrial Light and Magic was genuinely inventing tools that did not exist. The T-1000 was a gamble that could have turned the production into an expensive disaster. Instead, it changed what audiences believed was possible on screen, and it still holds up today. The CG was only part of the equation. The other part was an actor from Georgia who decided to make himself genuinely unsettling to be around on set. Robert Patrick did not just show up and play a robot. He studied predators, eagles, sharks, and big cats to understand how apex hunters move when locked on a target.
No wasted motion, no visible effort, absolute focus.
He trained 4 times a day to sprint at full speed without showing any physical strain. No heavy breathing, no flushed face, no heaving chest. He trained his eye contact to be completely unblinking. For the Galleria sequence, he drilled until he could fire and reload without breaking his gaze or letting his face register anything at all. What Patrick created was not an angry villain, but something worse, a system executing a task.
The vibe, as one crew member described it, was malware in human form, hunting its next file.
The character works because 3 things fuse perfectly. A concept too ambitious for mid-80s technology, an effects team inventing new techniques, and a human who trained to move like something that was never alive. Still unsettling 30+ years later. You know the scene. Sarah Connor is in the steel mill, and there are 2 of them. The T-1000 has assumed her shape, and the real Sarah has to make her son understand which one is which before it is too late. No CGI, no split screen, no digital compositing. Linda Hamilton's real-life twin sister, Leslie Hamilton Guerin, a nurse by profession, played the duplicate Sarah. The two performed on a duplicate set, carefully positioned and lit so the camera could capture both in frame simultaneously and let your brain do the rest. The same trick appeared in the mental hospital security guard scene. Twin actors Don and Dan Stanton, one playing the real guard, one playing the liquid metal copy. Twins Don and Dan Stanton played the pair one, the real guard the other, a liquid metal copy. Those effects. The team was busy inventing new software to melt Robert Patrick on screen, but the film's most disorienting moments came from a very old, very simple technique. Find two of the same person, position them correctly, let the audience brain fill in the rest. Sometimes the simplest solution is the one that stays with you longest. Fact 14. Edward Furlong was going through puberty during production. John Connor is supposed to be one kid, having one catastrophically bad week. Behind the scenes that week took long enough that Edward Furlong, 14 years old, when production began, went through a genuine growth spurt while the cameras were rolling. His voice was changing, he was getting taller, and the story took place over only a few days of in-universe time, which meant continuity.
Was a potential disaster. The crew shot scenes requiring the younger look earlier in the schedule. Then came the
toolkit apple boxes, specific camera angles to disguise his growth, careful blocking to avoid visual discrepancies between scenes shot weeks apart. Sound editors adjusted the pitch on some of Furlong lines in post to smooth overs. The voice change. If you have ever rewatched T2 and felt something was slightly off about John's voice, now you
no, he says things like, "You are a machine," underneath, right? The actor was sprinting through puberty
while the character was trying to prevent the apocalypse. Edward Furlong literally grew up on screen one, pitch-corrected line at a time. Fact 13. Joe Morton's death scene was built around his own collapsed lung. For a character who enters halfway through and exits in an explosion, Miles Dyson leaves a mark that lingers. The reason his death scene feels so raw comes from a place nobody on set expected. When production was working out how Dyson should die, shot in the chest, holding a detonator so the others could escape, they could not nail the physicality. How does a man breathe when his lung has been compromised? Joe Morton had an answer. Years before, T2, his own lung had collapsed in a car accident. He told Cameron that this character just got shot in the chest, so he was sure he was breathing the same way, and showed him exactly what that felt like from the inside. Like, I do not know how much longer I can hold this. Cameron's reaction was immediate. They built the entire death scene around what Morton demonstrated. That broken, stuttering, labored breathing in those final moments is not a technical choice. It is an actor reaching back into one of the worst moments of his own life and putting it on screen. On paper, Dyson is the man who accidentally creates the apocalypse. On screen, because of Morton, he becomes the man who fully understands what he has done and chooses to die trying to fix it. Something genuinely hard to rewatch even though you always do. Fact 12. James Cameron hired Nuclear consultants for the nightmare sequence. If you first saw T2 as a child, one sequence almost certainly stayed lodged in your brain longer than the truck chase, longer than the steel mill, longer than any of the action. The playground, the kids, the flash, and then everything. Cameron and his team did not approach that sequence with sci-fi shorthand. They hired actual nuclear warfare consultants and studied archival blast footage. The flash, the expanding fireball, the shockwave tearing through Los Angeles, the skin peeling away from bodies clinging to the fence, all built on real research. Here is the detail that sounds like a joke. They could not scale up a conventional explosion to create the mushroom cloud. The physics do not work that way. A regular explosion scaled up does not produce the right shape, the right slow billowing unfurl of nuclear aftermath. So they put a dancer in a cloud costume and filmed them physically acting out the motion of a nuclear blast rising somewhere inside the most disturbing sequence in a summer blockbuster is a person in a costume doing interpretive dance. It works perfectly, which somehow makes it worse. Critics called it one of the most disturbingly realistic depictions of nuclear annihilation ever staged in a mainstream film. For audiences living with Cold War anxiety, that playground, turning to ash, hit somewhere specific. Fact 11. Cameron compared the Terminator to the Tin Man. This is the boldest move the entire film makes, and it is not the liquid metal. It is turning the single most effective horror villain of the 80s into a broken, bulletproof father figure. In the Terminator, the T-800 is pure nightmare. Sunglasses, dead eyes,
Zero mercy. By the end of that film, you are not sure humanity survives something like this. In T2 same.
chassis different programming, and the movie does not just flip a switch and announce the change, it earns it. John Connor does not treat this machine like a weapon assigned to protect him. He treats it like a broken adult who needs basic human interaction lessons. He teaches it slang. He teaches it how to laugh. See that guy over there? That is a...
Give a smile. That is the lesson. He teaches it how to walk into a room
without making everyone panic. He says, you cannot just go around killing people. And the machine that ended. Police officers by the dozen in the first film now has a no-kill rule. From that point on, the T-800 uses kneecapping instead of executing. Cameron called it the Tin Man, finally finding a heart. The star who gave the 80s its scariest robot spent the sequel turning his creation into a traveling companion, but with way more.
Kneecapping. By the time they reach the steel mill, something quiet has shifted. Sarah still sees a tool. John sees the
only adult in his life who never lied to him, never walked away, and never failed to show up. Fact 10, the thumbs up was planned, hours before it actually paid off. Of all the ways for an unstoppable killing machine to leave a franchise who predicted an emotional thumbs up in molten steel. The final goodbye is not a big speech. It does not suddenly discover poetry. It uses the only emotional vocabulary it gathered over 2.5 hours of film and plays it at the exact moment it hits hardest. John had shown the Terminator how to do a thumbs up earlier. A throwaway beat the kid teaching his robot dad how to be a little less terrifying. Nobody flags it as setup, but then, sinking into the steel, the machine does the
one human thing it learned. One thumb up going under. What makes the shot devastating is how
small it is. No swelling music, just a steel hand, a gesture. A child taught it. And the glow closing. Over everything. You came for the killer robots and the one-liners. The image that burned itself into your mind is a fist slowly disappearing beneath liquid metal. That quiet gesture hits harder than every explosion that came before it. Fact 9. Schwarzenegger wore Hawaiian shorts to the biker bar, and it made the scene work. If you are reintroducing one of cinema's most iconic monsters after 7 years, the opening statement is everything. The biker bar scene is the movie announcing itself. The T-800 walks in, scans the room, and informs a biker with absolute calm that he needs his clothes, his boots and his motorcycle. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. 10 seconds later, the biker is on the floor, and Arnold is walking out in full gear. Here's the part that makes it better. Schwarzenegger showed up to film, his arrival completely naked before taking the clothes, wearing the loudest Hawaiian board shorts he could find. Cameron confirmed it. The real bikers used as extras looked down in genuine shock and confusion, which was exactly the reaction the scene needed. What makes it even better? The scene almost vanished. When the budget ballooned, a studio executive tried to cut it. Cameron refused. The executive went to Arnold, directly hoping he could be pressured into talking Cameron out of it. Arnold just said that only a studio person would cut a scene, like that. The scene stayed. It works because it fakes you out completely. Anyone walking in cold assumes the T-800 is still the villain. Then the story slowly pivots him into something else. The fastest way to flip a character role is to reintroduce them exactly as you remember them, then change everything they do next. Fact 8. The Los Angeles River truck stunt had a hard noon deadline. The Los Angeles River chase is the kind
of thing you feel in your spine even on a small screen. John on a bike, the T-1000 in a truck, and a lot of
unforgiving concrete. The production did not fake the moment where the truck drops into the channel. Stunt coordinator Joel Kramer and second unit director Gary Davis built a fake plaster wall hiding a ramp, then drove a real Freightliner semi-truck through it at 60 miles per hour and let it drop 30 feet into the riverbed. The impact was as brutal as it looks because it was real. The crew had a permit until noon. A failed stunt meant a massive loss with no second chance. On the first try, the truck missed the speed and swerved away. They fixed the pulley system reset and got it on the second try. Before noon, 8 cameras rolled, at once 4 in the channel and 4 along the wall, because nobody was betting the entire sequence on a single angle. Near-miss moments were built on precise choreography designed to look dangerous without destroying the lead actor. A real helicopter also flew under a 20-foot overpass during the chase. It still feels physically dangerous in an age of digital effects because it was. Fact 7. Michael Biehn almost missed. His one day of filming, Kyle Reese died in the first film. His story was finished, but Cameron wrote a deleted scene bringing Michael Biehn back as a dream sequence appearing to Sarah in her cell, telling her John is the primary target, forcing her to keep fighting. A bridge between the two films. Cameron cut it for pacing. The story works, but here is the footnote. Michael Biehn apparently overslept. Linda Hamilton had already been running rehearsals by the time he finally showed up on set. The scene is considered by many to be one of the most resonant pieces of footage in the franchise. It almost vanished because one actor did not set an alarm. Cameron also cut the crucial chip removal sequence. Sarah and John crack open the T-800 skull to switch the processor from read-only to learning mode. Sarah wants the chip destroyed. No, John fights to keep the Terminator alive and capable of growth. It is the father figure argument compressed into one beat, yet Cameron still cut it for the final edit. Later, special editions brought both scenes back, turning the movie into a hunt for fans who wanted every layer. Fact 6. Terminator 2 expanded into a theme park with the original cast. It did not end at the mill. At Universal Studios, the T2 3D Battle Across Time attraction functioned as a genuine mini-sequel. Cameron directed it. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Edward Furlong, and Robert Patrick all returned.
not as archival footage or lookalikes, they came back as themselves. The show was a live experience.
It mixed stunt performers with 3D footage to send John and his protector into the future war against Skynet. For a massive portion of the fan base, this was the real sequel. Not a cash grab, but an exclusive event.
You had to physically travel there to experience it. Outside the parks, the film became a total brand. Video games hit every platform, while an arcade shooter swallowed quarters in malls all over the country.
Comics and novels expanded the war with Skynet years before cinematic universes became the Hollywood standard. The movie was everywhere. You could play Judgment Day, read Judgment Day, and get caught in the crossfire. Fact 5. The budget was $102 million in 1991, which was genuinely insane. Let us put that number in context. The original Terminator was made for about $6.4 million. It was a lean, gritty thriller that worked, because its tight budget forced creative solutions. But the sequel landed at over $100 million for a sci-fi project. That figure represented a massive bet on a franchise whose first installment was just a scrappy thriller. Carolco Pictures was gambling its future on the hope that audiences would show up in record numbers. They were betting on a scale that nobody had ever attempted for this kind of film before. The rights acquisition alone cost $17 million. Arnold Schwarzenegger received $15 million. The visual effects were completely uncharted territory. Terminator 2 became the highest-grossing film of 1991. The gamble paid off perfectly.
But from inside the production, they were flying at full speed over terrain that had no map.
Fact 4. The 4 Oscars it won were not even the most important part of its long legacy.
The film swept technical categories, including Best Visual Effects, Makeup, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing.
It won 4 Oscars, plus Saturn Awards for Best Science Fiction Film Director and Acting honors.
But the critical reception at release was not just positive, it was absolutely stunned.
Critics expected a loud, expensive sequel and ended up writing about fate parenting and human survival. The conversation around the film was never just about action. It changed the rules of the sequel itself. It took the monster from the first film and turned him into the protector. It took the victim and made her the hardened warrior. It turned a slasher into a meditation on free will. That critical debate never really stopped. People have argued about whether this or the original is the better film for 30 years. You only have that argument about art that actually matters to you. Fact 3. Preservation. In 2023, 32 years after release, the Library of Congress selected the film for the registry. The criteria requires films to be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant to American cinema. Read that again. What started as a plan to bring back a killer robot ended up on the list of films preserved for history, future generations. Somewhere in a vault being shielded for people not born yet lies Arnold Schwarzenegger saying his famous line, "Hasta la vista, baby," a form of time, travel, not even Skynet could have mapped. Fact 2. The film shattered every sequel rule. Before Terminator 2, the industry standard was simple. Give them more of the same. Bigger scales, more fire.
More of whatever clicked the first time. Why mess with a winning formula? James Cameron ignored that.
He took the very thing that worked the T-800 and completely broke it. He flipped the premise on its head. The nightmare from the first film became the hero that gave the second.
Movie its poles. That choice changed Hollywood for decades. You can see a clear path from the success of Terminator 2
to a wave of creators who started asking, what if a sequel does more than just drag out the story? What if it forces us to question the original? Foundation. The film proved that a franchise audience wanted more than just the same old comfort. They craved surprise. They wanted heart. They even wept at the sight of a
metal hand offering a thumbs up. Sounds easy now. Back then, it was absolutely groundbreaking. Fact 1. All of this
happened in just 18 months. Here is the detail that makes everything else on this list hit harder. From the moment Carolco grabbed the rights to the second the film hit theaters, the entire process, the script finished in 7 weeks, the massive pre-production, the intense shoot, the digital effects, that forced them to invent new tech on the fly. The final edit, right, against the deadline. The actual reels rushed to cinemas at the very last second. It all happened in roughly 18 months. A $102 million shot.
Box Office King of 1991, a sequel that redefined cinema history, honored by the Library of Congress.
Finished in a year and a half. Next time someone complains about needing more time, you know the answer. That is 21 wild facts about Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and we have barely scratched the surface. That is how deep this
movie really goes. Tell us your favorite moment from the film in the comments. The thumbs up, the biker bar, the playground, nightmare, or the truck chase through the Los Angeles River. We suspect half of you will pick the same scene, and we totally get it.
If you enjoyed this dive, leave a like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who owns this movie on at least 2
different physical media formats. You know exactly who that person is. Until next time, I will be back.